Maps of Africa dating from at least the early modern period made by European cartographers feature a mountain chain running either roughly halfway or almost totally across the middle of the continent. These are the legendary Mountains of the Moon, and they show up on maps as late as the 19th century. Today, though, there is no mountain range in Africa by that name, which of course means that they were probably legendary. And that would not be strange. Plenty of maps from history have features which represent legendary or semi-legendary places, people, and animals. In this case, however, these mountains may indeed be real, because we have an account of a traveler who claims to have gone there, and we know from other details of that same account that the journey to the general area was true, which has led to scholarly discussion for the better part of 2 centuries on the matter. Where exactly, if they are indeed real, are the legendary Mountains of the Moon, and did the Romans go there? Roman trade routes to India which went by sea rather than over land began in one of 3 ports on the Red Sea. Once they had sailed past the Roman garrison at Pharazôn Island, the most distant military post in the empire, the ships sailed into the Indian Ocean. They could, however, turn south, and travel via the monsoon winds along the east coast of Africa. Taking this route would take merchant ships to a number of different ports along the East African coast, many of which we know from the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a list of ports and shipping routes dating to roughly the middle of the 1st century AD. The man who claims to have seen the Mountains of the Moon was a merchant named Diogenes, whose account is recorded in the Geography of Claudius Ptolemy, written around the year 150, and which preserves aspects of an earlier geographical work but which also incorporates other material. Diogenes traveled to Rapta, a market town which the Periplus lists as the southernmost trading point that Roman ships reached, and then, with the help of local guides, traveled for over a month inland, where he eventually found a mountain range which the locals called the Mountains of the Moon, because their peaks were so high that they were covered in snow, and were thus white like the moon. Diogenes claimed that these mountains were the source of the Nile, something that Romans did actually seek, and something that the Emperor Nero actually sent out a number of soldiers to locate, but that expedition ultimately failed because they encountered the vast swamp known as the Sud. Eventually, in the 19th century, the source of the Nile was found, but prior to that, nobody knew where the headwaters were located, and because of that, Europeans, Arabs, and North Africans often took Diogenes at his word. Today we know that the source of the Nile lies in the confluence of several smaller rivers and lakes which combine to eventually form the mighty river. It was this knowledge which led explorers in the 19th century to thus doubt Diogenes' testimony. Opinion is now divided between those who think that the Mountains of the Moon are purely legendary and thus Diogenes was fabricating the whole thing, and those who think that the mountains are indeed real, and should be either identified with Mount Kilimanjaro, or with the Rwenzori Mountains located between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, is it possible that these legendary mountains are indeed real and should be associated with a range in the area? Well, because Diogenes is supposed to have traveled to Rapta, and then traveled for something like a month into the interior of Africa, it would certainly help to know where that trading center was located so we could start to reconstruct his journey, but unfortunately that location is not known for certain. There are, however, several candidates along the coast of East Africa, specifically along the coast of Tanzania, which historians think could be that port. The 2 most likely locations are either in the general region of Dar es Salaam or in the Rufiji Delta. An analysis of distances mentioned between ports and islands in the Periplus, combined with GIS work, strongly suggests that it should be located in the vicinity of Dar es Salaam. However, in 2016, a series of submerged ruins were discovered near Mafia Island, next to the Rufiji Delta, and previous work on that island has confirmed the presence of Roman coins and glass beads. At this time, it's still not certain which location is the port, if either of them are, but more and more evidence is backing the interpretation that it should be located in the vicinity of Mafia Island. If that is indeed correct, then Diogenes certainly could have traveled upriver, and with the help of guides, ultimately stumbled upon the Rwenzori Mountains. The glaciers and snow which once covered the peaks are slowly disappearing, but during the time of Diogenes the mountains would have been covered, And the snow-capped peaks are probably the best candidate for the mountains of the moon if they are indeed real. As of right now, this is still an open question, and while it may never officially be answered, the archaeology conducted along the coast of Tanzania may indeed confirm the location of the lost port of Rapta. If that ends up being the case, at some point in the future, then the mountains of the moon may only be a short distance away.